Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a DynamoDB database and also AWS Lambda so that we can connect them both too. And finally we're going to go into API Gateway to expose the results from Lambda, from DynamoDB, from Lambda to API Gateway. And we're going to look at the API Gateway URL so that we can access that URL from anywhere else. So we're going to start with DynamoDB, click on DynamoDB from AWS console. Click on create table, then use my table or my SSL table. In partition key, you just want to give a partition key to this, so we can do SSL key, anything, and keep the default settings. Then at the bottom of the screen, click on the create button. Then this will open up with a new page. New page is going to open up with the table. I have two right now. I use one for my screen recording and one for the testing. So I'm going to click on the My SSL table, and on the right hand side it gives you the option for that table. We don't have any items right now, so we're going to create two items for your functionality that you're asked to build. And number one, there's nothing right now inside of our table, and items are basically there's nothing in there. So what we can do is we can click on create item, and then we can create keys and values. So key is going to be email, one of them. Primary key, leave the way it is. Click on insert string. Now we can select email at the top, mike@aol.com. Then create another key, string, change this to 1234. Make this password. And let's give keys different numbers, so 1234. Let's give 1234 now. That's going to be primary key. We can just leave one also. Then hit save. Then go create item, another one, and SSL key 2. And insert string again, email. This is going to be otactican at fullsail.edu, and you can use your own if you want to. And create another one, string, password. Make sure all these matches, otherwise you will have a problem getting your functionality to work. And click save, and you will see that emails and password edited this database called my SSL table. Alright, so you're done over here. All we have to do is to go back to AWS console again, click on Lambda. We're going to create a new function. We're going to create our Lambda function here. AWS console, click on create function from scratch, my Lambda function, leave everything else the way it is, create function. This is going to bring you to the new page. New page is going to open up with the text editor like view, and I'm going to show you how that looks. It takes a couple seconds, but here we go. So in this here, we don't change anything on the designer mode. We're going to scroll down to the editor mode, where our Lambda handler is making asynchronous calls as soon as it gets triggered. We're going to change execution time here from 3 seconds to 30 seconds because it might take a little longer. We're going to save it every time it applies the changes. So then we're going to write our Lambda script. We're going to select Node.js functionality here. You see that runtime is Node.js. You have a bunch of other options. We're going to leave Node the way it is. Node 12 is fine because it's related to this class. I'm going to change the export handler a little bit. We're going to use AWS related libraries. We're going to require all those libraries in here. AWS-SDK. And then we're going to create another variable called DynamoDB. And that's part of the AWS, so we can just use DynamoDB or DB class from the AWS library. And that should be sufficient for this purpose. And make sure I'm matching everything in here for the spelling. DynamoDB, looks good. Now we're gonna change a handler. Handlers right now only accepting events. We want to accept event, context, and callback. So instead of using what's given to us, I'm gonna write my own exports handler. And this time we're gonna use function and event like we had. Then we're gonna have context, and then finally callback our result. And now I don't need this part anymore. We're gonna return and response, control our response on the next lines here. Add our async function inside our handler. So async function, let's call this f for function, and we're gonna pass an event to it from the context handler. And then we're going to call this function over here with the event that's being passed from the context and the handler, event handler. Alright, so inside of async function, we can now use our return await from our Node.js, so our promise. And then we have a promise and actions towards it. So inside our promise, we're going to have a resolve, reject, resolve, and reject right here, and then we're not going to close parentheses here. We're going to close the parentheses when we're done with it. Right, run here. So now we have return statement, return from our asynchronous upon result. Await is going to trigger either resolve the response or reject the response depending on the errors. So just follow me for the next pieces of our code. We're going to set up our DynamoDB parameters in here. And this needs to match our DynamoDB name from our previous setup. And this needs to be our parameter object. So we're going to create an object in here. And there's our first object, member, table name. Then we shall have filter, expression. Now the names are pretty long, so you might have a typos, like mine. I'm doing this a lot. So filter expression, but that's okay. Now we're going to set up our keys and values for our prepare statement. Email and password equals to password. And then we're going to create our expression attribute names. Again, email is email here, and password is password here. And then we're going to have expression attribute values, attribute values object, and this is going to be email, and the value of that is going to be, we're going to get from the user, which is going to be through the event handler, event query string parameters dot email. And that's the first one. And then to make sure, let's add this comma in there so we don't get an error there. And then this is gonna be password, another object, a string event dot query string parameters dot password. Okay, so this should take care of our database parameter setup. Okay, let's put that in a little bit better look so that we can see everything is a little clearer. Okay, now we can use our DynamoDB variable from above dot scan using the parameters above, and either return an error or data at the end to us. So that should let's not end it here again. We're gonna create a result functionality inside of this area. Now let's make sure after we're done here, we close the parentheses here, so we take care of the errors. Now let's see what this one is. Parameter is not defined. It is defined inside the context, so don't worry about that for now. Let's just take care of this part. Now we're going to collect the result, if and else statements in here. So if there's an error, let's define that if error, catch that error, and do console.log error exclamation mark. And if not, that means there's data. Call our method back. Don't send anything as the first parameter null. Then the rest is gonna go output on the browser as a return. So status code 200, and then we can set up body, and this is gonna be JSON dot stringify data. And then finally we can set the headers for the browser, content type, application, JSON. Let me scroll back so you guys can see it a little better. Okay, so this should be it. Let's save this and move on with the rest of the parameters. Let's test it out. So if we test it out and you configure the events, this default event, you can just leave it blank. You will see that there's no valid query string. So it's our application, our Lambda is going to give us a problem. Hey, I don't know what this is because we're not passing that, we're not receiving that from the URLs. Okay, so this is only going to be working if the query strings are passed. Now, in order to test its functionality, if it's connecting right or not, we can just change this part to, for now, mike@aol.com and password 1234, and save it and test it. So we have async function, return await new promise, resolve, reject. That looks good. More parameters. You see that I have a typo here. It's not param, it's params. Okay, let's test it one more time. And there we go. Now it's resolving that object. It was a simple typo issue. Okay, now that we know what's working, let's put it back the way it was. I'm going to undo everything I did. First thing I'm going to do is fix that syntax params, and I'm going to save it. Now I know my Lambda is working. Now I'm going to move on to the rest of the functionality. Click on API Gateway. I have a bunch of APIs over here. I'm going to create another one for you. Click on Create. Scroll down to REST API, not the second one or the first one. Click Build. Leave everything default. My Lambda API. Let's call this My Lambda Gateway. GW. I'm going to copy the same thing. I'm going to leave regional the way it is. We're going to leave North Virginia as the access level, access location. Then this will bring you to a new page. In a new page, we're going to select to create method. We're going to select get method, check mark, and this will bring you to a secondary page. We're going to leave Lambda function the way it is. Make sure you check this part, otherwise you won't get URL parameters or form parameters in your endpoint. And my Lambda is, I think it's called my Lambda, is the name of the function. Basically, we named my Lambda, so use that over here. Click Save, click OK. Now, basically, it gives you the overall look of of things. So basically your users are gonna go to the endpoint, which is a client. From the client, they're gonna make a request. It's either get, post, put, whatever they pick. Right now we're using get method, so they're gonna make a, if they make a get method, it's gonna hit this path. And once they make that request, they're gonna hit Lambda proxy to collect all the information that's being passed to Lambda. It's gonna trigger the Lambda function with the URL parameters or whatever parameters being passed. It's gonna skip this integration process because we picked the proxy way. So all the information that's being passed and triggered, it's going to return the response with whatever the Lambda is responding with. In our case, it's responding with either good or bad or the database object we select from the DynamoDB. All right, so we're not done yet. We're going to go to our stages. You can do it two ways. You can just click on the stages here, or you can click on actions, deploy Lambda, deploy API, I'm sorry. Then select a stage. You can click on new stage, stage name production. And make sure you copy paste all of them, hit deploy, and this will give you the URL you need. Now if you go to this URL, as soon as you execute this URL is going to hit the Lambda is going to go to DynamoDB. Depending on the scan results, it's going to display the information. Alright, so now, and remember, we have to pass email and password. So if you just go to this URL, Lambda is going to crash and it's going to come back with an error, and you're not going to see this error on this browser. So in order to fix that, we're going to go back to our resources, click on get, and then method request. From here, we're going to create URL string parameters. Number one is going to be email, required URL parameters, otherwise it's not going to be applied, and it's going to give us an error because those are required information to be passed to Lambda. Make sure you add them into your API gateway here. And the password, and click save. Just click on a check mark that will save the information, and now we're ready. Now our gateway supports all these changes, all these parameters, and I click on the stages, click on the production, and scroll down and make sure I hit save one more time, and make a note of that URL. You can copy that URL or open a new tab. So this is what it looks like right now. And the reason it's giving us an error because we're not passing the required information. So our URL parameters are going to be prod email equals to mike@aol.com and password equals to 1234. And you'll see that object is presenting itself. If you type something correctly, you will get an error or no results at the end. Okay, so to test what we're doing, basically you're going to log into your EC2 or on Amazon and make sure you can do that. So let's go to the Amazon right here. Go back to Amazon Services. EC2. Here's my EC2 that's running right here. And we tested these before. And make a note of the IP number, which you have done. Make sure your node is running on the port number you specified. In order for that to work, make sure your inbound rules enables SSH and 8080 here, and go to your URL, type 8080. So you see that my EC2 is running in Node.js, and basically when you type form, it should bring my form in here, and when you type mike@aol.com and password 1234, it should make an API request to that gateway we set up earlier and get the results and display it in our app. So here you go, we made a request to that API gateway and results are returned back to us and we handle it. So I'm giving you a sample code to complete this part of the functionality, but that's your assignment. So in order to, again, to test if your Node.js is working, all you have to do is SSH into your EC2. And you can do nodemon test.js or form.js or file.js, whatever you're running on Node. Or you can just do node test.js, which will run the application. But mine is already running, so it's giving me an error right here. Okay, so my nodemon is already listening. That's why I'm seeing this. However, if you're not running the server, meaning that if you type your IP number in 8080, you're not getting that application, that means your node is not running. In order to run, you either run nodemon or node app.js. So in order to figure out what's running, since I have a conflict, I can do process parameters in Linux and grep node, and you see that I'm running my node here. So I can kill all those, kill 27757, and run it again. You see that my node is not running anymore. So if I go back to here now, you see that nothing is showing up. Go to my SSH, I can just do node test, run my node code, and you see that my server is back. Now I can again do the form, and type in some information. You see what happens when you submitted bad information. You see that not found user is triggering, and again this code is given to you on your assignment page right here. So this is going to be the server code that's running. Okay. If you have any questions, I'll be on Slack. If not, good luck, and I'll see you guys online.